see. Oh, then we move on to finally Colin Upton says, sorry I didn't get back to you earlier. I might have to change the copy on the Poison Elves panel. I forgot and he's referring to Drew Hayes, was picked up by Sirius, so wasn't self-publishing at his death. I am thinking of adding some copy about online crowdfunding is making self-publishing a viable option, and then significantly adds for some. And I think that's true as well. There are people for whom crowdfunding is going to work, and there are people for whom it isn't going to work. But I do think that it would make a nice addition to the comic. Drew Hayes was such a tragic figure. I remember meeting him in Seattle. It may have been Spirits, and how enthused he was over his goal of producing a page a day and more. The next time I saw him months later, he was a broken man, very sad. I definitely had that impression about Drew Hayes. The Seattle stop, whether that was Spirits or the '92 tour, I think that was the last time that I saw him. My impression was that his marriage broke up, and he had, I think, a daughter, and he was the caregiver for his daughter, and trying to do that and be a productive comic book artist and writer definitely got to be a lot more than anybody could handle. I dug out my first 7 issues of Poison Elves when it was called I, Lucifer, and got Rolly to take a picture of me with them today, so that will be coming your way, Matt. One of the interesting things about Drew Hayes was he was born the day of the moon landing, the actual day, July 20th, 1969. And I didn't know anybody else who was in that category. In retrospect, trying not to offend Wendy Peeney by doing a Poison Elves preview, I probably shouldn't have done that, because Drew definitely his self-publishing company name, Mule-Eyed Graphics, was definitely Drew. It's like he was going to do this, and he was going to do what I talked about, doing a page a day, keep your book on schedule, and he definitely had much more of an uphill struggle than I did in doing that. And I probably should have done the preview of Poison Elves, if not I, Lucifer, back in 1991 when he started it. So I would be interested in when it was that you saw him, and what made you say that he was a broken man, because he may have been broken, but he was definitely dead man walking, because how many people actually get 80 issues of a title done, and then another 38 issues of a number of Poison Elves miniseries. So I'd be interested in hearing more, Colin, and we can just communicate through a moment of Cerebus, since we're working on the story anyway. This was his postscript. I looked at faxing through my computer, but I couldn't figure it out. Besides being old, I have learning disabilities. If you want to give it another try Fax Zero. It's evidently pretty user-friendly for people who just want to figure out how to send this Word Word document as a fax to this phone number, and I don't know if it's as easy as it used to be, but it used to be pretty darn easy.
I think Fax Zero limits you to 3 pages now. Or if you pay more, you can get more. I use my fax only because my fax I can send and receive, and in this job, receiving faxes is kind of a deal. Right.
Kind of, yeah, it sort of comes with the territory. Okay, and then you had a last minute question from Brian West. Hello, Brian West, our Cerebus Twitter volunteer. You want to talk about your Sisyphean task, rolling that stone permanently uphill, being the guy who does Cerebus on Twitter. That's got to be a living definition of it. Has anyone ever asked you to sign an autograph onto their body so that they could create a tattoo from it later? It's like, no. You have to remember that I did the last signing 2010, and I had only done a handful of comic book conventions between, around the time that Cerebus came to an end, and however many years before Cerebus came to an end. And tattoos are a far more recent thing than most of the people who are your age or younger, Brian, than they understand. It's like I'm old enough that I remember when tattoos were just on sailors. I mean, even Army and Air Force guys didn't have tattoos, and the only reason that sailors had tattoos was because they came into port cities, and the dockside area of a port city was the absolute scuzziest part of the city. So that was the perfect place for somebody to have a tattoo parlor. It is definitely its own thing, but I'm trying to remember when the Rolling Stones album Tattoo You was. I think it was 1981, 1982, and this was, could you just imagine Mick Jagger with a tattoo that went all the way onto his face? And it's like, tattoo all the way onto your face is virtually nothing now. I mean, tattoos are everywhere and on everybody, but for me, that's just the entire civilization, the civilization formerly known as Christendom, has now turned into a universal scuzzy dockside environment where all of these things are like, oh, cool, instead of, that's sincerely creepy. So, no, I had a neighbor, Scott Nash, who owned the place next to the Off-White House, and noting the comic art metaphysics of the last name Nash, and he was gung-ho on, he was going to get me to design a tattoo for him that he would then get put on his entire chest or something. It's like, no, I can't do that. It's just, if that's something that you really like, well, that's something that you really like. But take my word for it, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, you're going to go, what the hell was I thinking of? And how could I possibly get this off of me? And then find out what laser removal costs. and go, well, I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. This is really, really dumb. Nothing against Margaret Liss. She's certainly got a very nice Cerebus tattoo. She might even have multiple nice Cerebus tattoos at this point, but it's just one of those. That's when you realize you're getting to grandpa age, when something that is just universally accepted by everybody else and nobody even remarks on it anymore is, I don't want to see what comes after this. I really don't want to see what comes after this. So, fortunately, at age 66, I can't be too far from the finish
line. You always say that. I always think of my grandma.
Well, it is one of those things where it's. I don't know. This goes back to the discussion about God. Nobody knows what God thinks of them, and as an omniscient being, God has perfect knowledge of everybody, and it's like you know, I would be really happy to check out at any time because I'm just too old for all of this. The entire world stopped making sense to me 25 years ago, and you know, it would be just my luck to find out on Judgment Day that God went, well, if you hadn't started doing the Monday reports, because that links to John's Gospel, stuff that you don't know about yet, but will trigger whoever is going to actually come up with very beneficial commentaries on John's Gospel. So if you hadn't made yourself indispensable, I wouldn't have to make you live to 108. But there you go. It's one of those. If there, I don't think we do get multiple lives, but if there is reincarnation, I always picture God going, I've sent you back dozens of times already. One of these times, can you just get married, have a couple of kids, put them through school, move into the old folks' home, and die? It's the only thing that you haven't accomplished so far.
I mean, if you get to come back and you get to make different choices, does that mean you still finish on March 2004? Or do you, sell to DC and just ride off into the sunset?
Right. Well, I'm not, I tend to think of it as...
one and done.
You follow the track that you follow and you end up where you end up. If you start getting into alternative realities, that's not helping your decision making. That's opting for science fiction over what you already know. This is how reality works.
Right. Well, it's I'm at work and my brain's starting to daydream, and it's okay if you can go back in time. How far back do you go, and what do you do? And it's, well, if you go, you go back 10 years. Well, okay, 20. Okay, well, okay, why not 40? Why not? It's at a certain point. It's okay. Why don't you go back and stop the first amphibian from crawling up onto the earth and throw him back in the sea for another couple weeks? And okay, now you're ready to come up on land. At a certain point, it's like, you can keep. If you could go back, yeah, you could go back, but why would you stop there and not go further back and fix something from before that? That's the part where I'm like, that's why I don't think time travel's ever going to happen.
Yeah, and the more you think about it, like I say, I think the more you're distracting yourself from the actual task at hand. It's God's commedia of this unspools the way that it unspools, and there's learning that goes on, but I don't think God learns anything out of creation. It's the creation that has limited learning, but it's always there and available. if that's what you want to do. But most people opt not to. But that's one of those. Well, okay, you were a rebel spirit, and you didn't want to submit to my will. You wanted to run away, so you ran away, and you made all of these decisions, and it ended up exactly the way that I said it was going to end up for you. So you have no complaint on Judgment Day now, because you did have all of these choices to make. You made enough wrong choices that you ended up where you ended up, which was the discussion that I had back with you when you were one of the five giant suns that formed after the Big Bang. We had this discussion. I said, this is what's going to happen. You said, no way, I won't do that. And here we are on Judgment Day, and I was right, you were wrong.
Right.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes, actually, even before we're up to 2 hours. We're really cutting these down, so...
well,
anything else?
That's when I posted... Last month I didn't post, hey, Dave's going to be calling, get your questions in, just to see what would happen. And it was, last month was the regular people that are going to send a question in no matter what. And then this month I'm like, okay, it's about a week beforehand, so I posted, okay, Dave's going to be calling, but understand, last month it was under 2 hours, and I didn't say anything. This month, if I say something, we get a bunch of questions, and it's 3 hours again, I don't have a problem doing 3 hours, but it just, on Saturday when I'm getting, or Friday night and Saturday getting everything ready, that's longer that I have to play around to get everything up and going. So that's why Steve said something about he didn't want to go over the time limit. It's like, well, the limit is it's not a real limit, it's just a construct of, well, if we go over, we go over. If we're under, hey, we're golden.
Yes. It feels like summer vacation anytime that we do Please Hold for Dave Sim, and it's less than 3 hours.
And that's, and I'm thinking everybody's figured out that it's I got a question, if it's urgent, yeah, send it in. If it's something that you've been wondering about for a long time and you don't think anyone's asked, well, yeah, go ahead and send it in. But, I haven't had to weed out a question in a while, which is getting really nice, because I remember when we used to get the, hey, didn't we already do this one?
Right. Okay. I appreciate all of your time and effort. We all appreciate your time and effort, Manly Matt Dow. And I'll be watching for your quotes from the 1989 Batman movie. I got the facts yesterday, and I turned on the movie and started watching it, and then I went on the internet. And I'm like, oh, half the quotes I was thinking of that popped up in my head are on the list of quotes from this movie. But we watch it. Paul's like, why are you watching this? I'm like, I'd explain it, but it wouldn't make any sense to you. Just enjoy Jack Nicholson while you can. There you go. Okay, you have a good night, Manly Matt.
You too, Dave.
Talk to you next month.
Bye-bye.